thing I forgot, trying to remember what it is. I think I covered everything that's important, yeah. So if you're still kind of like considering whether to take this class or drop this class, to keep this class or drop the class, I highly encourage you to go over the syllabus thoroughly from the beginning to the last page, which is page 7. And make sure you know all the expectations. I will be telling you more along the way that, you know, if you're in the point of making decision, you should read through it all and ask me questions if you have. Sorry, I'm forgetting something. I can't remember it. Okay, well, okay. Okay, now we don't start with chapter 1, we start with chapter 3, because if you look at your textbook, this is the first chapter that I packaged. Chapter 1 and 2 are more for microeconomic side. Okay, chapter 3 is more like a foundational chapter. Let's see, okay, very good. So, some of you have taken microeconomics, that's right. So what's the difference between microeconomics and macroeconomics? Anybody? Raise your hand if you want to say anything. What's the difference between microeconomics and macroeconomics? You are taking macroeconomics now, you know that, right? Okay. Okay, let's, yes.
Macro sees like the whole, like the big picture,
Good.
and micro just sees like smaller. It's more in
Yeah,
depth.
very good. I like your explanation. Yeah, the big picture, yeah. In macroeconomics, you deal with the whole economy. Now, how many of you have TV at home? I don't, because that's why I ask questions. Because it's all bad news, you know, TV. So anyway, if you turn on the news, the financial news, right? Telling about, oh, Wall Street is doing this and then, whoa, every time it's like, whoa, right? Because it's usually a jump or a drop. So they're waiting for you to react, you know? So all this basically the macroeconomics, the big picture, you deal with unemployment, inflation, what else? GDP, recession, the state of the economy, the big picture. So that's what we study. Now, in the other class on microeconomics, which some of you have taken, is more about decision-making of different consumer side, producer side, and then you look at decision-making for consumers and for producers and for people like Obama, which we call government. We also look at that. So macroeconomics is more about dealing with unemployment. Oops. Shouldn't use short form for the first things that I wrote down here. Unemployment, inflation, and then we talk about recession, expansion. What else? GDP, economic growth. Chapter 7, chapter 4, chapter 5. I think this is chapter 6. This is economic growth is 7, and then we have money market. Chapter 8. Oh, actually capital market. And then we have money market. Chapter 9. And then we have everything else right here. So these are the chapters that we'll cover throughout the course of this semester. And so again, that starts with chapter 4. Chapter 3 is extremely important. We have a test on this, and we also will have a homework on this chapter because a lot of fundamentals that we will go over in chapter 3 will apply to capital market, money market, to way 6 up here, and the labor market as well. This is together. So you would have trouble if you don't have chapter 3. In the past, it just jumped right into chapter 4, assuming that students have concept of demand and supply, but And I was shocked that they didn't have, so I want to be sure I cover this chapter, yeah. So anyway, supply and demand, if you deal with, now there's no way that you could copy everything I have here. Unless you're a very fast note taker, no way. And what I do is I ask students to bring the book to the class. So a lot of time I have you read definition, let you earn your class participation point, and also the point to where you could get all this material. And hey, you're welcome to download all the PowerPoint slides. Just don't sell it to my future students, okay? And bring it to the class. Okay, the PowerPoint slides, you could print it out, 6 pages, 6 slides per page, excuse me, and then you could add notes to it, if you like. And one other good way to take notes during a class is use keywords instead of copy everything word for word, because it will be too fast. There's no way I could go back every time and let you copy it, because hey, it's in the book, so I tell you what it is in the book. So bring your book and buy the book, because textbook is very, very important. And we use it heavily, like I say. Okay, so we want to look at in any microeconomic situation. Okay, if you look at the economic system, there are 3 questions you address, like, what are you going to produce when you graduate from UNCP someday? You're going to go out and do your online business. What are you going to sell? Some students say T-shirts. Okay, and who are your consumers? Who are you going to produce for? And how are you going to produce it? Unfortunately, we're in a market system. We're not in a central planning system, which is the title, the communist system. So because that would affect how you produce it. Are you in a perfect competition situation? Are you a monopoly, or are you an oligopolistic producer? So these are some of the questions we ask. And then we're going to define for you what exactly is a market. So what exactly is a market when you hear that word? Some of you straight away think about stock market. And you saw me wrote down 3 times, labor market. What else? Capital market.
Money.
A money market, very good. And we of course have the product market, which is what we're dealing with this chapter. Okay, the easiest one is the product market, because everybody could relate to product market. You go out to McDonald's, you're buying a hamburger, how much is it? If it is $2, how many would you buy? If it is $4, how many would you buy? Typically, we say the lower the price, you buy more, right? Make sense? Yeah. Okay, so a market consists of both buyers and sellers. So this is the definition for a market. In other words, they have to be buyers and sellers interact with each other in order to call a market. Because you could all day long talking in your dormitory and say, I'm going to sell my book, I'm going to sell my book. By the way, I should explain something. So now that I hear something. Please do not bring in any food or drink, except for water. Water is fine. Okay, bottled water is good. But don't bring in KFC, Wendy's, Hardee's. Yeah, my first semester, I should know better. Student brought in KFC. Everybody could smell it. And you say, ah. And one other time, a student who started chomping on those chips. You know how loud those chips are? They're crunchy, like So at the end of my every sentence, I go crunch and crunch. Oh. Okay, so no food, please, and no drink. I think the interactive video room people would appreciate it. There's a sign out there too. Except for water is fine. And that also includes, please do not bring in any of this, what's that place out there?
Starbucks.
Starbucks, yeah. No Starbucks, please. I appreciate it, especially the lab. When we get to the lab, it's even worse. Don't do it. I hope you remember it, yeah. Now, if you comes in, you got this whole KFC stuff you just bought, don't throw it away, okay? You can stay out there, finish your thing, and then you come in. I'm fine with that. I know you'll be late, but, that happens. But after the first few times, you should know. Okay, so now we're gonna look at product market and we're gonna look at price and quantity. Like, what are you selling? You're selling product and services. Okay, products would be like anything. What have you? Clothing, books, pizza, hamburgers, cars, computers. Now, services are different. Services will be like car wash. If you go to a restaurant, you get services from the waiters and waitresses. You pay for their service. You give them tips. That's service. If you go for a haircut, that's a service. If you go to a bank and see a banker, that's a service. So we want to talk about what is demand curve and supply curve. Okay? A demand is from the buyer's viewpoint. And supply is from the seller or producer's viewpoint. And this is your consumers. Here, same thing. We use the words and the terms synonymously. Okay, so we want to look at what is a demand curve. So what it is given a price, how much would you buy? So like I said earlier. So when you do a graph or demand curve, you start with an L. Big L. This is your y-axis, this is your x-axis. Still remember your high school math? Y-axis is your vertical axis. This is when you take notes. Everything on the whiteboard, you take notes, yeah. That one, you could access it later, right? X-axis is your horizontal axis. So in economics, typically values goes on the y-axis. So this will be your price per unit, and down here will be your quantity. Okay, if you have your book, that's in, let's see, page that should be on page 13. 1-3. Okay? Okay. So what it is you have certain points and then you ask. So for example, let's go look at this one. Like for this one, I'm going to go back to the other one more time. So let's just say that if the price of the pizza is $4, I'm starting from the high. How many would you buy? You might say, oh, I'll buy about 8 slices. Now I know in this graph here, what you see is demand curve for pizza for big city like Chicago. Okay, so therefore the units you see down here is thousands of slices per day. I know it might be difficult for you to envision that, so let's break it down to our level. You and I, individual level, so we could call it unit, same thing. So if it's $4, you will buy 8 slices. Now if the prices come down, so here you could do a point here, okay? So let's call this point A. I'm a little bit more exact when I do my graph, and that's just kind of like really, rough. So if it is $3, according to the graph, you will buy more, which in this case is 12. So you have another point here we call point B. And if it drops all the way to $2, you say, yeah, let's have a pizza party, and I can even invite my professor. All right. You buy 16 slices because it's cheaper, like $2. So we call this point a point C. So then the next thing you do is you join the 3 points together, and we call it a demand curve. Okay, so let's join them together. I hope I could do that. Yeah. Why not? We call it DD. DD stands for demand curve. Okay, so now we have something called demand curve. And let me ask you something. How would you describe the shape of the curve? Slope, okay. Straight line, okay, good. What else?
Descending.
Sorry?
Descending.
Descending. Okay, downward sloping. That's the word we use. I'm trying to learn name. I'm not doing very well. Okay, tell me your name.
Jacqueline.
You are Jacqueline. Okay, and the lady over there?
Margaret.
Margaret, you're number 14. Miss Shaw. Okay, very good. So I'm trying to learn all the names I could. Okay, so you got the downward sloping demand curve. Now let me ask you this. How do you know this is downward sloping and not upward sloping? How do you know?
Descending.
Okay, it is descending. I know, because you read from left to right for graph, okay? I have to explain this because one time I have a lady who was out of school for about 20, 25 years. And she say, wait a minute, this is upward sloping, because she was reading like from right to left. Whoa! Go back to high school or elementary school. Because we read the graph from left to right for horizontal axis, everybody got it? And from bottom up, okay? So there it is, you got that. Now let's go back to our definition, and I'm gonna ask you this over and over again. At least the next class I will ask you what it is. What is a law of demand? A law of demand basically says that if a price of a certain goods comes down, like what we did earlier, from $4 to $3, from $3 to $2. So if P comes down, your quantity demanded goes up. Right? Makes sense? From $4 to $3, you buy more, from 8 units, slices of pizza to 12, and then to 16 when you invite your professor to the party, to your pizza party, right? Because the price keeps dropping, and the quantity demanded, DD stands for demand, goes up. So they have opposite relationship between the price and quantity, because, so this is called law of demand. And vice versa. If price goes up, quantity demanded goes up, and vice versa. Can somebody explain what is vice versa?
Opposite.
The opposite. Spell it out. Spell it out. How opposite? What opposite? Spell it out.
Just flip.
I know, you keep saying the same thing, but repeat the sentence.
If quantity
I
goes
help you.
down,
Yes?
Then the product will go
No, the
up.
other way. Stop with price.
If the price goes
Oh,
The
if
price
the
goes
price goes
up.
up.
Oh, okay, one person at a time. How about the same person next to Asia?
If price goes up, then quantity goes down.
Okay, very good. If price goes up, quantity demanded comes down, opposite direction. Very good. That's what I mean by spell it out. Be explicit. Okay. And what is your name? Are you Destiny? Okay, very good. So therefore, the demand curve is downward sloping. So that's simple enough. I hope. We'll do a lot of graphs, so be ready. Yeah. Now, how do you explain this downward price and quantity demanded being in an opposite relationship? There are two theories. First theory is known as substitution effect. The second one is known as income effect. Substitution effect basically says, oh, if the price comes down, hey, people buy more of it. But if the price goes up, you stay away from pizza, from buying pizza. You might buy hamburger for the party. That's substitution effect. Then the other theory is known as income effect. Basically says that, whoa, hey, if the price comes down, it boosts your income indirectly. True or not? Because you feel like, hey, my purchasing power has gone up. If the price has gone down, say, from $4 per unit per slice of pizza to $2, your reaction is, wow, yeah, I'm gonna buy more because I feel like I'm rich. I feel like my purchasing power has been boosted. Yeah, go ahead. Send out the invitation, professor. Come on, I'm rich. I'm including you. All right, I'm coming. Okay, so that's these are the two theories that explain substitution and income effect. Explain why demand curve is downward sloping. And then we want to define a very important term. See these 5 stars here? I tell my student this is Hilton Hotel. 5 stars. So Hilton concept, very important. The 5 star. Look for all the stars when you study for your exam. They will come out. Because this are the stars. Hey, important concept, you know? So I want to introduce what is reservation price. There are 2 types of reservation price. One is the buyer's reservation price. Another one is the seller's reservation price. You know what? The buyer's reservation price is the maximum price you're willing to pay. If you go to Macy's today, you want to buy a nice dress, and you have in mind some number. What is that number? How much you're willing to pay? The highest. Tell me that number. Ladies and gentlemen, give me a number. I'm waiting.
80.
80? Okay, thank you for that number. That's a comfortable number, right? Everybody agree? Some people might say, I go for 40, I go for 150. Okay, let's go for 80. 80 means when you get to the store, if it is $100, would you buy it?
No.
Very good. You won't buy it because that's the highest you would go. 80 goes beyond it. No way. If it is 50, you grab it. You might buy 2. I'm kidding, yeah. What for? For your twin sister, maybe. Okay, so you think in terms of maximum. Now, what's wrong if you tell them your minimum? What's wrong if you walk into Macy's and say, oh, by the way, my minimum price I'm willing to pay is 80. They could charge you 1,000. They could charge you $1 million. Would not be a problem. Say, oh yeah, your minimum is only $80. This dress costs $1 million. First lady has endorsed it, or you know that kind of stuff. And so anyway, yeah, it doesn't make sense for the consumer to say the highest price I'm willing to pay. Well, the lowest price, but should be the highest price you're willing to pay for the largest dollar. Okay, now for the suppliers, producer is the other way. If you're selling a textbook, well, let's just say hypothetically speaking, you really don't like this class. Yeah, I bought a book, so I'm gonna return it. The bookstore say too late. So what do you mean? Too late. Okay, you have to sell it by advertising. How much are you willing to let go? What's the lowest amount that you're willing to let go of the textbook? Give me a number. I'm waiting.
How much was it?
Well, it doesn't matter. Just I'm asking you for a number. Yeah. It wouldn't offend me if you give any number. Yeah. Yes.
30.
Sorry.
$30.
$30. Okay. You're willing to let go. Let's say if you buy it for 50. Is that you still willing to let go for 30? You must have bought it for about 40, maybe.
10.
Oh, no. It can be 10. Yeah, because you want to sell it at the. Oh, you're trying to sell it higher. Oh, no. Now, if you buy it for, let's say 50, right? You can't try to sell it for higher. You have to sell it at the same price or lower, right? Because you have touched it. Well, I'm kidding. Some people would say, yeah, it's used. No, because you have, but anyway, lower. That's your 30. Okay, 30. And then a buyer come along and say, I'm only willing to pay, so let's just say 30 is the lowest, okay? So a buyer's come along and say, I'm willing to pay you 35. Would you take it? Absolutely. I hope so. Grab it before he or she change their mind. But if she say, I don't know. And you start assuring him, look at all the highlights, different colors, you know. I've been to Dr. Dunn's class and I take heavy notes, look at all the writing, all the correction, you know, all the answers at the back. I hand wrote it as she spoke. Wow. Okay. And she said, okay. Well, the highest I'm willing to pay is 25. Is that a market? Is that a transaction? You want 30, she's willing to pay 25. Is that a transaction? No! Because you're not happy. You're not reaching agreement yet. So what has to happen? You Yeah, you all are very good at that. If you go to market, you
yeah,
know.
barter.
Haggling, right? Start using your power. No way. 30. No way. 25. And after a while, okay. 26. Okay. 29. And finally, $27.25. So, both parties are happy. And we have a market. So this is when you have a market. Okay, and that price we call it equilibrium price. So I hope you wake up because the word equilibrium is 5-star in economics. If you are in a PhD program in economics, there's a little book, maybe about 50 pages, all equations. All that you talk about is equilibrium. That's whole semester of work. You study that little book, you prove all the equations. So equilibrium is an important concept in economics. So what it is coming back a little bit, I'm a little bit ahead of myself over there. So marginal benefit is an increase in total benefit that results from carrying out one additional unit of the activity. Now in this textbook, they treat the demand curve as marginal benefit, because it's on the buyer's side, you benefit. How much are you willing to? Your willingness to pay, yes. So marginal benefit is from the demand side, or the textbook does treat it synonymously. Okay, now supply curve is the opposite. Okay, so again, supply curve is the opposite, meaning that, let's look at it. So again, if you start out with $2, you're willing to sell 8 slices. If it is higher, you're willing to sell more. Why? If the price is high, you're a seller now, not a buyer anymore. You're willing to sell more. Have you heard about a term called incentive? Yeah, you got higher incentive. If the price is higher, you earn more. You want more people to buy because your revenues will be higher. Right? Make sense? So don't tell me that if the price goes up, you say, oh, okay, I'll sell less. No. You will want to sell more because you have a higher total revenue. So the explanation on why supply curve, which is different from what I wrote there, what I drew earlier, this is called upward sloping now. So the law of supply would say, see if you follow, see if you could make deduction. I'll give you the first part of the sentence, see if you could complete it. If price goes up, the quantity supply will go up, yes. So in this case, you have you would have the same or direct relationship, okay, or positive relationship between price and quantity supply. Again, this is quantity, that's price. Okay, so go back to supply curve is showing the quantity of goods that sellers wish to sell each price. Okay, a while ago, Destiny, right? When you started to do that vice versa thing, you start off with quantity. It should be the other way. The price is the cost. The quantity, supply, or demand is the effect. Okay, so now, sellers must sell a higher price to produce additional units of the product to cover a higher opportunity cost of each additional unit. As you produce more and more, your opportunity cost of producing goes up, so you charge a higher price. We will get into that a little bit more later. There's also this thing called, well, no, I don't think I'll get into that concept another time. So here again, going back to seller's reservation price, again, we talked about it earlier, that if you want to let go of your book earlier, come on in. You are Melanie? Is that you? Okay, Miss Beck. A while ago you mentioned that, I forgot, what did you were talking about, the $30 that you're willing to let go. Now, remember that that's your seller's reservation price, that's the smallest, or the lowest, or the minimum price that you're willing to let go of your good. Okay, and that's equivalent to your marginal cost. The marginal cost is kind of like your supply curve. So I'm gonna erase this because you can see when I'm doing it a little bit clearer. So here it is, you got supply curve upward sloping. I did not derive it for you, but anyway, the higher the price, the more you are willing to supply. Here's your quantity. So the law of supply basically say, as your price goes up, again, the price is the cost. Okay, the effects is your quantity supply will go up because it moves in the same direction. One's up, one is up, the other one is up, and vice versa. Again, who would like to tell me what is that vice versa? Repeat it. Spell it out.
If price goes down, the quantity also goes down.
If price goes down, the quantity supply goes down. Pay attention to the word quantity supply. That's going to be very important. It's not the same as supply. Quantity supply, past tense. It's not the same as supply. In this textbook, we'll ask you that question on your test. I'm dropping hints. Okay, so there it is. Law of supply basically says that. And then you have a demand curve earlier. That's downward sloping. You have a supply curve that's upward sloping. So now you have a point here of intersection. And this is your equilibrium. So remember your equilibrium price a while ago was $27.25, wasn't it? When there is a market. Because a while ago, you were talking to yourself. When you were talking about inviting a professor to the pizza party. Yes, you were talking to yourself. Remember, like, there's only one line coming down, demand curve. There's not a market. Because nobody is going to sell it to you. You're just dreaming. You're just saying, oh yeah, if price is that, I will buy such and such. If price is down, I'll invite my professor to the party. So far, you're talking to yourself. You're not in the market yet. Because it's not the interaction of supplier yet. One-sided. And the same thing, these sellers are talking to themselves. And say, oh yeah, if the price of pizza goes up, I'll sell more. But you see, there's not a buyer here. There's not a market, no transaction. They're all talking to themselves in this corner and that corner. And now we marry the two together. So meaning that we bring them together, and that was a haggling process that we went over the price of text for 30. Sellers is willing to let go for 30, buyers say, oh no, 25. And then finally they reach an agreement after several rounds of haggling. So they are happy at $27.25. There's a happy face. Because demand, the producer and the consumers are happy. There is a transaction that takes place. So equilibrium, defining it now, it is when there is no tendency for it to change. So if you look at the graph, right, there is a force. There are forces that force it to converge. At that point they're happy. That's why I draw a smiling face there, because that means there's no tendency for it to change. When you growing up, you go to the playground, right? Do you know what is seesaw?
Mm-hmm.
It should be, yeah, okay. So if you jump on one end, the other person jump on the other end. If you're up in the air, what does that mean? You're lighter, right? The other person is heavier. But if you're at the bottom, the other person is up in the air. You are heavier, correct?
Mm-hmm.
What if both of you are up in the air?
Same.
Same weight, wow. Get your twin sister or brother to practice it. That's the equilibrium. Okay. Have you ever watched this old Dracula movie? Old grandfather clock. Midnight strikes is in dum 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 dum, and then it stops. When it stops, that's your equilibrium. So in physics and other theory, other discipline, they use it to explain various things. So market equilibrium is when buyers and sellers are satisfied, happy with their respective quantities in the marketplace. Yeah, at the end of that haggling process, we're happy at $27.25. Equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity is referring to this $27.25 when there is a market that takes place. And the bottom here is your what we call P star and Q star. Q star stands for equilibrium quantity. And P star stands for equilibrium price. And again, let me repeat that one more time. You can only use that term equilibrium, which is a 5 stars concept, when you have both supply and demand. See, a while ago, we didn't use that term. We just say price goes up, if price comes down. That's when you're talking to yourself, one-sided, buyers and sellers. And now together, you could use the term equilibrium because there's intersections of demand and supply curve right here. Equilibrium price is $3. Equilibrium quantity is 12 slices of pizza, or 12,000 slices. So at this point here, please write this down. When you're in equilibrium, right, your quantity demanded is exactly equal to your quantity supply. Okay? So I'm gonna skip that. Don't worry about the equation because this class does not require calculus. So, what is the opposite of the term equilibrium? Anybody? Think of all the English terms you could think of for the opposite. So now, how about back up a little bit? What's another term that you could use to describe equilibrium? After having defined the concept of what is equilibrium, what's some other terms you could use, like a seesaw example I gave? What's a good term? Starts with B, giving you a hint.
Balance.
Yeah, very good. Balance. What about another one starts with S?
Stability.
Stability is good. Did you say it, Nick? You remember what I taught you from last class? Very good. That wasn't too long ago. Stability. Very good. Now, what's the opposite of equilibrium? What do you think? Well, if you can't do that one, let's start with this. That would be imbalance, instability. So what about this? No, it's not in this. In equilibrium. There's no such a term in English. This equilibrium. This equilibrium means, oh, we're out of balance. We got a problem. Quantity demand is higher than quantity supply now. We want more, but it's not enough. We call that in English shortage. This is one example. Second example is, whoa, we got too much. Have you heard about this army surplus place? Why do people go there? To get what? A surpluses. Why do they call it surpluses? Because there are too many items to go around. So quantity supply greater than quantity demanded, we call it surplus. So this is an example for this equilibrium. And we will look at these two examples. I think we have to look at it in the next class. But please read ahead of time, get a copy of the textbook, because we will do it more. I will call more names and hopefully more class interactions. But get the book and bring it to the class. Bring a calculator, all these things. So thank you for coming and see